Well, welcome to the Friday Devotional. John Miller here with 7 habits of highly effective prayer, particularly as it regards to asking and receiving from God. We are on habit number 4, which is effective prayer. Effective prayer requests prefers God's will above our own. You know, Philippians 2:13 says, God who works in you both to will and to work for his good pleasure. So we exist for God's pleasure, not our own pleasure. And so a deep, abiding, trusting relationship with God, where we are so grateful to him for all that he has done for us, we ought to want his will above our own, simply because we're just so thankful. And I know this idea for his good pleasure kind of it confronts us with the issue of the goodness of God and his best for us. Do we really believe that he has the best interest for us in our life? In 1 John 5:14 and 15, it says, this is the confidence which we have before him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us in whatever we ask, we know that we have the request which we have asked from him. That's in 1 John 5:14 and 15. So if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us and grants us the request. And it's all contingent upon his will. Obviously, if we're going to ask for something in sync with what God already desires to happen, it's going to happen. So the bottom line is we want God's will above our own. In Luke 22:42, it says, Father, if you're willing, please take this cup from me. Remember that? Who said that? Father, if you're willing, please take this cup of suffering from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. Well, here, this is the Son of the living God. And he is saying, Lord, Father in heaven, I want your will above my own, because in his humanity, he understood what he was going to be going through, and it was a kind of a rejection and a pain that we will, because of Jesus, never experience. But nevertheless, he knew that. And so he had this interesting dynamic within his soul. But he said, listen, I know I'm going through horror like no one has ever known. But Lord, Father God in heaven, I want your will above my own. He was obedient to the Father 100% of the time. Because he understood that the Father's will was the right way to go and would end up being the best for everyone, every human being, and best for God himself. So I think we see this in the Old Testament, where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood before Nebuchadnezzar. You remember that? With the fiery furnace. And in Daniel 3:17 through 18, it says this: if we are thrown, this is what the 3 men said, if we're thrown into the blazing fire, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up. So this is, Lord, we believe you can deliver us from the fiery furnace, but even if you don't, we still will continue to serve you. We want your desire above our own. And so it was a powerful statement of faith. And it really comes down to faith. When we want God's will above our own, and we go to prayer that way, God sees the priority of our life, that it is him and not us. In 2 Corinthians 12, interesting, where Paul is having this struggle in his in his faith. And so it reads in 2 Corinthians 12:7 through 10, to keep me from exalting myself. To keep me from exalting myself, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me and keep me from becoming proud. So he kind of knew why this ailment was coming upon him. Whether it was eyesight, we don't know, but he had a tremendous ailment. And he said 3 different times, I begged the Lord to take it away. Each time he said, my grace is all you need. It's sufficient for you. My power works best in weakness. And so Paul says, so now I'm glad to boast about my weakness so that the power of Christ can work through me. And then he says, that's why I take pleasure in my weakness and in the insults and hardships and persecutions and troubles that I suffer for Christ, for when I am weak, then I am strong. So he found the good and the challenge of his life in this ailment that he had. So this is about, Lord, I see that your ultimate plan has my best interest at heart. And what that means is that you're conforming me to the image of Jesus Christ, and you're doing your hammer and chisel work on me. And I want you to, in this short life that I have to live. I want you to work on my life. And so if these things that are coming upon me, I have to believe there's purpose in it, and that you're developing me into the man or woman of God that you've called me to be. And you're a gracious God, you're a good God, and you will give me the capacity to endure what I need to endure, and the end result will be your pleasure and my good. So, preferring God's will over our will means that we truly believe that he has a better plan for us than we think we do. And when we're willing to accept it in whatever it is, then we have that capability of coming before God and saying, God, here's what I desire. Here's the request of my heart. But at the end of the day, I know that your will is better than mine, and I want your will, even above my own. So there's some thoughts for you today, and I hope you have a great weekend. Bye-bye.